Yo, K-Kunnnn here. Today we are looking at some possible teams you could put Lighter on. So obviously this is the media server, things are subject to change, and this doesn't represent the final product. So with that out of the way, let's get started with our first team, Lucy, Lighter, and Soukaku. Soukaku mains, rise up because this team is pretty smooth to play. Minus me getting my ass whooped with Lighter, the general rotation of this team is you go to Lucy, do her EX skill, then swap to Soukaku and get some stacks with her. When you finally finish all that setup, you can swap into Lighter and do his aura punches for the elation buff and his final hit to apply the collapse effect. And if the enemy isn't stunned yet, you want to just keep attacking with Lighter, then the chain attacks. I go to Lucy first, and depending on what you want, you can go to Lighter or head straight to Soukaku and do her damage portion. Overall, this team is surprisingly smooth to play, albeit if you're not into Soukaku because of her slow hit, then it's probably like a 7 head pats for Lucky Boo out of 10. Next up is Burnice, Lighter, and Piper. With this team, I think this helps Lighter to get his morale gauge up fast due to Burnice's EX hold skill and Piper's EX hold skill as well. But the only problem with this team is that Piper doesn't really get any benefits from Lighter's core passive, since she's basically like a physical damage dealer, but that doesn't really mean you can play them together. It's just not optimal, but it still works. Since Burnice benefits from the damage bonus and fire rest down, you could do some funny disorder damage with both of them. You could probably replace Piper with Jane, but again, you could probably like run someone else. So I started off by applying Scorch onto the enemies with Burnice and went to Lighter so that I can start applying Elation to the team and apply Collapse effect so that we can extend the stun duration of the enemy. And it might take a while to stun him if you're not used to Lighter's playstyle of using his shuffle dodge. I explained it in my kit breakdown video, so check that out if you haven't. But yeah, after the enemy is stunned, you can do your ult with Burnice if you have her heat pretty low, and then spin to win with Piper and proc some F2P damage disorder. Overall, I'd rate this like a 6 headpats out of 10 due to Piper and Lighter having like 0 synergy, and the only time you want to swap on to Piper is when the enemy is stunned, but again, it's still workable. Next on to the team comp shelf is Ellen, Anby, and Lighter. Now you might be thinking, what the heck? A double stunner on the team? And I was on the same boat as you when I first saw it on the live stream. The player who was running Ellen, Lycoan, and Lighter. I really thought Blood overcooked there, but in reality, it's so smooth to play and you can stun the enemies in just like a span of like 5 seconds or less. So with this setup, I build up some flash freezes with Ellen and then parry or swap to Anby to do her like EX combo skill, and around like 70 to 80 stun in the stun meter, I would swap to Lighter and do his aura punches and doing the chain attack and pretty much ending things in like one rotation in this clip. So overall, I think this is a quick stun speedrun strat that will clear most of the easy stuff, but with endgame stuff, you have to be really careful and know what you're doing with your character swapping. So yeah, 8 headbats out of 10. Now on to the premium version of this team, Ellen, Lycoan, or maybe Qingyi, and Lighter. So with these two teams, it's more comfortable than the F2P option obviously, with Lycoan providing a lot of iframes when you EX skill with him, while Qingyi does not activate Ellen's additional ability, which kinda sucks, but she does apply a huge stun damage multiplier on the enemy, which I feel like it is like a good enough trade-off in a sense when you're adding so much damage multipliers when the enemy is stunned. And Lighter providing some buffs similar to Soukaku, so I'd say depends on you if you want to do that. With Lycoan, when you finally stun the enemies with Lighter, you probably want to do his chain attack first so that you can apply the stun damage multiplier onto the enemy, and finally ending it with your Shark Boo or Ellen and do your Ellen damage rotation. So these two teams, I'll rate it 9 headpats out of 10. On to the next one, Rina, Lighter, and Ellen. This team is the quick assist central. Doing Rina's E to Lighter is just chef's kiss, adding pen ratio to your team and hyper buffing Ellen when you finally stun the enemy that you're fighting. With this team, you won't be needing Rina's additional ability, but having her M1 is pretty nice, making the pen ratios buff uptime a little bit longer. And swapping back and forth between Rina and Lighter goes hand in hand, man. When you finish with Lighter's aura punches, you would reapply Rina's pen ratio buff and swap back to Lighter to quickly do his aura punches and surely stunning the enemies, to swapping to Ellen and do your big PP ice damage rotation with her. So I'll give this team a 10 headpats out of 10. The quick swapping between Rina and Lighter is match made in heaven. Next one is Ellen, Lighter, and Soukaku. So this team is for the people who doesn't have Lycoan. Lighter will fill that role of the stunner in this team. So probably going to replace Anby on this team if you're running Anby on this team. So nothing much to say here. You probably want to start with Soukaku if you have energy to convert those expended energy to morale for Lighter, and then going to him to do his Lighter things and apply buffs to the team and debuffs to the enemy. And doing your Ellen things when the mob is stunned, obviously. So this team gets like an 8 head pats out of 10. Now then, Lucy, Lighter, and Soldier 11. With this team, it's pretty much similar to Rina, Lighter, and Ellen team. Having access to Lucy's quick assist when she does her EX skill to Lighter, it feels nice. Transitioning to Lighter's aura punches, building the elation, and applying the collapse effect onto the enemy. And when finally stunned, we just have to swap onto Soldier 11. Also be sure to reapply like Lucy's cheer on buff, because sometimes it might take a while to stun the enemies with Lighter, and then pretty much whack the enemies with their fire aspect resword, turning them into ethereal barbecues. I wonder what's the taste of that. But anyways, 10 head pats out of 10. Nothing too surprising with this one. Next one is Koleda, Lighter, and Soldier 11. With this team, if you're skilled enough, you could probably stun the enemies with this one. I know Koleda stuns pretty fast with her EX skill and when she dodge attacks, but I didn't expect her to fill the stun bar to like 20% with one EX skill. Like, that's pretty fire, literally. With the Butcher, bro's gonna be stunned in mere seconds with Koleda. So anyways, usually with this team, sometimes you lose track of how fast Koleda stun the enemies is. So I always remind myself, look at the stun bar when it reaches like 70 or 80. That's where I would swap into Lighter to do his aura punches so that he can apply his buffs and debuffs, then pretty much swap to Soldier 11 with the fresh buffs from Lighter. Though this will vary if you're playing in Shiyu defense and especially in SBT. But yeah, 9 head pats out of 10. My opinion is pretty much similar to the double stunner team. Second to the last one, Caesar, Lighter, and Soldier 11. Now I feel like a small explanation can be done here. Proc Caesar's shield, go to Lighter, pair with Caesar to activate the Distribe Proto-Punk buff and apply the debuff, and swap back to Lighter to stun the enemies and just face tank everything unless you're in SBT. You probably don't want to do that. And then just whack the enemies with Soldier 11 when you finish chain attacking with your team. 10 head pats out of 10. Last but not the least, Burnice, Lighter, and Soldier 11. With this team, you can most probably have like a 100% uptime on burn because of Burnice's like off-field damage and fire application, which also might be an issue as well if you're not paying attention to her heat gauge, since it will take a while to stun the enemies with Lighter, so you probably want to swap back and forth with Lighter and Burnice, and then going back to Soldier 11 to do her damage phase if you finally stun the enemies with Lighter. So overall, this team gets 8 head pats out of 10. In this segment, we'll be in the Speculation Zone Zero. So will Lighter be good with Miyabi? Which I think he will be. But the problem is with Lighter is that his additional ability activates only if you have like a stunner or someone else in the same faction. So you probably want to run Burnice, Miyabi, and Lighter to make Lighter and Miyabi work, but we don't know what Miyabi's additional ability activation condition is. It could be an ice character or another anomaly character, and the obvious one will be like someone in the same faction as her. So time will only give us the answer to that, so we'll have to probably wait for more information about her. And if you dream, I guess you probably already know it. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Subscribe so I can stay in the basement, like for the algorithm, and leave down in the comments below. Will Lighter be a good addition for your account, especially if you have like Soldier 11 and Ellen? Or you're just gonna skip because the next patch is going to be Miyabi. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Bye!